Here's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of All That, brought to you by OTS. This is a very special Friday edition with the man behind OTS on the sidelines, my guy, Derrick. And there's a lot going on in the NBA. We're getting ready to ramp up, like training camps are starting. And I thought that would be all the news, but Ime Udoka, the Celtics coach, the team who the Warriors just faced in the finals, decided to like break the news cycle with some news that I think was unexpected. And may or may not kind of change things for the Celtics going into next season. But Derrick is a huge Celtics fan. He covers them. This is his squad. It's personal to him. And so I thought like he was the best person for me to have on. So Derrick, thank you for joining me. We have a lot to discuss. I appreciate you coming on and for all you do for All That.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on. Again.
Yeah, cool. So you're smiling, but I don't know if you're feeling so warm and fuzzy inside. Let's talk about, let's kind of like lay out what's been going on. So I think it was 2 days ago, maybe like Woj kind of like tweeted this like crazy headline like about how do you pronounce Ime's like name? Am I saying it correctly?
Udoka.
Udoka, right?
I've been hearing it's
Udoka? Okay.
Yeah,
And his first name is Ime though, right? Ime Udoka. Okay. And so he tweeted, you know, most people have like Woj's tweets set up like to be notified, right? Because we're usually trying to like get whatever the latest is. And so this like tweet about like the fact that like he may be like suspended or like something was happening. I don't even remember, but he didn't give us any details. It was just like this graphic and it was just like, what the hell did he do? Like we didn't know. And like, so then that just started like wide speculation on Twitter and the timeline was buzzing. People were like, oh, I think he had to have fought someone. People were saying like he probably slept with someone, like cheating scandal. Like, so everyone was just speculating. Then they started speculating about who it was, and they were like floating pictures of people, which I hated, because, you know, you're just putting things out there without like any verification. And so as the details started to unfold, we learned then that he had at least what was described as consensual relationship with someone, sexual.
Right.
And so then a lot of people were like, well, what's the big deal? If they're consenting adults, what's the problem? Right. And so you had the people like me who were just team Nia Long, who was just offended.
Yeah.
And I mean, largely the Black community is team Nia Long.
Yeah.
And so we're very offended by the even idea that this man would think to cheat on her and put her through this. So I was like, admittedly disgusted and just pissed, right, for Nia. And then there were some people kind of talking about, because people are like, what's the big deal? It's consensual and who cares? People have like affairs all the time, which we're gonna get into that because I don't like the casualness in which people are discussing that. But then there was this other angle that people were like doing with the whole Brett Favre and like what he has going on with like, you know, defrauding folks and taking their money, poor people, you know. And so like people are like, oh, like Brett Favre isn't being covered like this, but this is a big deal. Like Ime is not the first, you know, person to like do this. Which I kind of get annoyed by that kind of like rationale and logic. Like we all understand that like white men and Black men are treated differently in the media. So we can talk about that and be real, but we don't have to dismiss that like what Ime did was also inappropriate and not touch on it. And so I don't like that. And so that was like happening. I'm just laying the stage for like kind of the conversations that have been happening. And then we got like another, I don't know if it's a bombshell, but then we got more reporting from Shams that apparently, and I don't know if it's more than one woman or if it's one woman, but that like, at least initially, I guess, before the consensual, and I'm saying that with air quotes, relationship began, that there were comments made to her that were unwanted. And it says sources said that the woman recently accused Udoka of making unwanted comments toward her, and that led the team to launch a set of internal interviews, um, where I guess before they were under the impression that it was a consensual relationship. And I guess as a result of those interviews, that's how they ended up here, where they suspended him for the full season next season. And will, I guess, also be looking into further possible action against him. And I think he made a statement which was pretty basic and simple, and just said, like, you know, he sort of like apologizes, one of those generic statements, apologizing for like putting his family in the situation, and accepts, you know, whatever, you know, the organization has done, and like he wasn't going to have anything further to say. So I think, if I'm accurate, is that like an accurate reflection of what's played out to this point?
Pretty much, yeah. I think the it's been so weird because the way that it came out, like Woj, you could tell Woj had fun on Canva because it was so, the graphic itself was just so weird, and is Woj 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 everywhere, breaking news. But it was such it broke in a way that had no context to it.
Right.
I think that was the thing that annoyed me the most about it. Is that he broke the news with no context, and it ended up being a space of speculation for the last, what, we're almost like around like 35 hours, I think, something like that, which is weird. That doesn't make any sense. Now I know Woj and Shams have this thing where they try to they're mainly competing against each other, right? But
Right.
Shams for some reason crosses Woj up a lot for over the last year. He's crossed him up a ton of times, and it seems like he did it again with this. But um, there's so many layers to this that it's one of those things that you don't really want to talk about without context. And I think that was the biggest part of this, even like putting all the female staff, Celtic staff members, pictures out and speculating that it must have been this one or that one. Very irresponsible on anyone's part that did that, because now you're putting these women in situations where they have to answer for things that they had nothing to, to do with.
Agreed.
And that was another thing. I'm seeing a lot of people that are, quote unquote, supposedly activists and allies for women's rights, but as soon as something like this comes out, now you want to put them out and air them out like this, where they're not even the ones that were involved.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest things that annoyed me with this in general. So not just that, but also the fact that you have people that are in the media that are speculating. Like Richard Jefferson was one that I couldn't I he threw me off with how he put it out there, because he was very irresponsible as well. But he said, ask yourself, if it's consensual, then why the suspension and the length? Almost insinuating that there's something else that's, I mean, we know there's something more to it, but insinuating what it is without fact is very irresponsible. So
Right.
that's the only thing that's one of the biggest things that annoyed me with this.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I kind of always thought there was more to the story. Like,
Mhm.
I do think it's irresponsible to like not give us any more context in this
Yeah.
situation. And I think as Black people, right, like we are more sensitive to this because we understand that, like, when you just put out news like that about a Black man, like how he's going to be attacked and discussed and talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So you want the media to be more responsible. They're likely not, because they're just thinking about like first to get out. But
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought like this wouldn't be something unless there was more coming, because
Right.
really, like, Shams and Woj, they're not gonna like put out something like this unless they know there's like more to the story. We
Mm-hmm.
just, the more to the story didn't come yet, and I still don't think we have like all the
Oh no,
information,
we don't.
and I don't know how much we'll get. But I think the point that many were trying to make, and I'm going to bring this to like an employment perspective, because as many of my listeners know, I'm a lawyer and my specialty, my area of expertise is employment law. That's what I do.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why employers don't like these kinds of relationships in the workplace, particular when you have the dynamic of a manager or a supervisor or someone who's high up and someone below
Mhm.
them, is because that muddies the water of the ideas of consent,
Yeah.
because you have power over this person, and so they
Mhm.
might be consenting, air quotes, but they might be doing that because they feel like they have to.
Mhm.
And so you really want to avoid those kinds of relationships in the workplace.
Mhm.
And you know like, I can say as a woman, there have been times that like I'm sure a man has thought, "Oh, she was okay with this."
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
she consented, and I can tell you that like I felt I didn't have any choice but to consent, right? And I
Right.
think that's something that a lot of men struggle with, because I hear them, or like when they talk and they're just like, but
Mhm.
there's like women like feeling safe,
Mhm.
right? Like situations you're in. Like
Mhm.
I was like in a situation one time where like I was getting like these I was doing like a boot camp at like this gym owned by this man, and I probably should have stopped going, but like, like I paid my money and I paid a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But he always made me feel a little uncomfortable, like just how he looked at me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just it was just a thing, right? Like I couldn't, like he never actually, I guess, said anything inappropriate, but it
Mhm.
was like kind of like how he just always like looked at me and stuff. And then I also was like confused because like, with all due respect, not that I don't find myself attractive, but like he was with a white woman. So I'm like, I don't think I was like his type.
Mhm.
But like part of like my courses came with like you get like a sports massage. And so I was like
Oh.
there one day, and that was part of like what was offered. Like it was this like you buy a package and you get
Mhm.
like sports massages, right?
Mhm.
So the one time I had to like get my massage, like it was just like very inappropriate, right? And I
Yeah.
felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like I never went back again after that day.
Mhm.
But in that moment, I felt like I had no choice, because like everyone had left. It was just him
Mhm.
and it was me. And I was worried, like, well, what if I say no? Like, like if I react a certain way, am I going to be safe? Like, I
Mhm.
wanted to be as like cool as possible to ensure that I could get out of there
Right.
safely
Right.
without anything happening to me, if that makes sense, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And like that sometimes is not something I think men can appreciate. Like when we're in certain situations, it's
Sure.
like I just want to like make it home.
For sure.
Or
No.
not be attacked, or not have my job affected. And I'm saying this
Yeah.
like because these stories come to me all the time
Mhm.
as like an employment lawyer when I'm assessing like workplace harassment and
Mhm.
things like that. And a lot of the times the person in power is so unaware of how scared that
Mhm.
the person is of
Mhm.
them, or that their job is in trouble. And so I think like when people just kept saying it's two consenting adults, who cares? They were not appreciating the fact that like Ime and his stature within the organization sort
Mhm.
of made it difficult to just say that it was like a consenting relationship. That was even
Right.
without us knowing the facts.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think for for a lot of people, especially for guys, like a lot of those finer details or perspectives we don't think about immediately. Like, I grew up my sister and I are really close. We're 14 months apart. So I grew up with the understanding of like, perspective from a female's perspective on, different situations and stuff like that. But I don't think a lot of people that if you don't have that kind of, you know, experience, a lot of guys would not think of it like that, right? And even with me having a sister close in age, there are a lot of things I still don't think about. You know what I'm saying? So like there's a lot of dynamics with it that I think that that's the reason why I didn't think that it should have been put out there like that in the first place, because without context we have no idea what we're talking about. We're speculating, thinking that it's one thing when it's another. And it's even more dangerous because if this wasn't a consensual thing, like if the lady that was involved with this really did not want to be involved with this and it's now being put out as consensual, we're now downplaying her experience to making this be even worse for her,
Right.
you know. So that's this whole thing was just, to me, was messy. I don't know, and I know Stephen A. Smith said that this was uh on the Celtics primarily to put it out like this. I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm saying I don't know, because if Woj just said that Brad Stevens caught wind of this a couple of days ago and started launching an investigation into it, my question is, how is it that it's on the Celtics to put this out there? What benefits the team to leak this out there? So my
Yeah.
question about it was, if if it was leaked, which obviously it was, this has to be someone that is connected to either Ime or the staff member that did not like whatever for whatever reason. Because something about it doesn't make any sense. Like the way it was put out, especially without context, the Celtics not responding to this until last night, which was probably like around like 10 o'clock Thursday night. It actually happened like while football game was on. So like I was completely thrown off because now now I can't focus on the game, right? It was very weird, but I wish in general that more media members would go back to the time of releasing things with context and also being more responsible. I'm not saying that Woj was irresponsible, but I think without putting out context, that this now leads to speculation across the board for everyone involved, even people that aren't even closely connected to the team. Like it's now like Nia Long. Like now, what is it that she and her son are going to end up having to endure for the next year? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think the Celtics put it out. I think Stephen A is, let me choose my words carefully. Um I'm not surprised at like anything Stephen A said. Let me just say that.
Right, 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 right,
Like
right.
I knew he would like come down a certain way.
Mhm.
Um and this brings me to sort of like my whole feeling again of like how people treat like things
Mhm.
casually, like
Mhm.
because they don't think it's a big deal. Like I don't mean to like lump all men together, but
Sure, sure.
because like it's so common,
Mhm.
people cheat and do different things, whatever. Yes, I know. But because it's so common for us to hear about men cheating,
Mhm.
engaging in like sex, like people are just like, oh, that happens all the time.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's not okay that it
Right, right,
happens
right,
all
right,
the time.
right.
And so, like, the casualness in which people want to treat this is problematic for me. Cause, like, even
Mhm.
if you take the Nia stuff out of it,
Mhm.
it was so irresponsible on Ime's part, like
For
what,
sure, for
whether it
sure.
was a consensual or non-consensual relationship, right? And
Yeah.
so I think the reason the Celtics put it out there, one, what I'm not sure, it says they conducted internal interviews. I don't know if they involved like a legal team. I don't know if they involved like an
Mhm.
actual like like the way, like with the Sarver stuff, like how actual like law firm was brought in to conduct the investigation, the way that companies hire me to come in and conduct and they might do that, right? It might be that now based on their internal interviews and what they've learned, that's why they're going to say it's like pending additional, and they might now go get the lawyers, right? Because I don't think I saw anything about lawyers being involved yet, right? And so I think that they leaked it because of like basically what's happened. You had like the stuff that came out in the Mavs organization, right? With all that stuff with Cuban and everything that went on there. You just have like the Sarver stuff that came on. You had, right? And like you had like, I mean, like it's not in the height of it, but we're still in a post Me Too era, right?
For sure.
So I think it's like we want to make it clear that we got in front of this. We're doing something as soon as we learned more. And I think that that's honestly why they leaked it, right? Like, I mean, you guys were just in the finals. You're an organization, fair or not, that is known for like being racist, and you had a Black coach, so like who had this success there. So that's like a success story, right? Like you want to tout that. You have this Black coach, you got to the finals, he did good, look like you're progressive, right? So I don't think that they would have wanted to damage him like unnecessarily, because he looks good for them, right? So I don't think that, I think this is solely about like reputation and like trying to prevent harm and reputation and things like that. And I don't think it was like, I think that's why like they leaked it. Like we don't know that they leaked it, but I'm pretty sure that it's them who leaked it. I don't think it was I doubt it was anyone close to the individual. I doubt it was like people close to Ime, but that's my perspective.
That's the reason why it why I kind of wonder if they actually did, because I agree with you on the reputation aspect, right? But leaking it that way without context does more damage to reputation. I mean, I'm not even just talking about his reputation, but like the female staffers, their reputations. Like,
I don't think they're concerned about those people's reputations. They're concerned about the Celtics reputation. That's when I say reputation.
Okay, for the team.
Right. So I don't think it's like, because they're leaking it knowing that more information is going to come like within a 24 or 48 hour period, right? We're going to learn more. There's going to be limits to what we learn, but we are going to learn more. And so
media
I
days
think
coming up.
Right. So I think it's about people knowing like the Celtics are taking action. They take these kinds of allegations seriously. They reacted right away. It was swift, right? It wasn't like, oh, you're like suspended for a month. They took like this. They want to send a message about what kind of culture they're creating there. And that's what I think it's about. It's not about
that makes more sense.
It's not about like the woman. It's about like how they reacted to like, protect the woman.
Which I agree with that. That makes sense. But even doing that, like you're like, even though it and I'm not even sure if we're gonna actually know which female staff member it was, but even in a 24-hour block of time, those women's reputations have been
because people jump to, but the thing is, like, even if we waited like however long and it comes out, they're always going to look to keep the reputation of the woman private. So that was going to happen either now or later, because when it happens, then people are going to go do their own internet investigations and try to figure out who it is. So I don't know that could really be avoided, to be honest, because people are going to do that anyway, right? Like they're going to try to find out like who the person is that's involved. That's just like the nature of the world we live in. So,
but so let me ask you this though. Would it, if they didn't get the lawyers involved prior to the leak, putting out the female staff member's name, would that have been legally jarring or anything like that in that sense, in that period of time?
Well, in general, with employment matters, when things happen, you don't want to like put it out there. So they do have a duty to keep confidential. as much as they can,
Okay.
just as like their employer-employee relationship. So I don't think that that's something that they would have ever disclosed.
Okay.
But now, like, yes, like if that person is the person who leaked or makes it known, then that's different. But like as the
Mhm.
employer, like no, it would be very unlikely that they would have disclosed the name.
Okay. Okay. So that now that makes a little more sense. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, here we are now. It's
Mm-hmm.
like almost a full 3 days later, whatever it is. Um, and you know, an assistant, I forget his name from,
Joe Mazzulla.
yeah, is
Mm-hmm.
going to be taking over to start the season. Supposed to be a really smart guy,
Yeah.
well respected. He interviewed for the Utah Jazz position, right? But didn't get
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is just shocking. It's just shocking after the season the Celtics had
Mm-hmm.
and having all this momentum going in. I would say that they were one of the two teams considered the favorites for next year to at least make it back to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, I've seen some Celtics fans saying like, I don't know why people think like this should affect like the team. Like the team is kind of still intact in terms of the players, though you guys
Mm-hmm.
have some injuries.
Okay.
Um, and then you have other people just thinking like how this is going to like really, really affect them. I'm
Yeah.
curious where you land on that because I think that we tend to, as a society dismiss how like these kinds of scandals, like the mental impact
Mm-hmm.
that they can have like on an organization. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that it will cause them to not um still be a good team, but like your coach is changing. There was a
Mm-hmm.
rapport that was built up with, their Ime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that they have respect for this other guy, but there's still a difference between being on the staff and now becoming like basically the head coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he may do certain things differently. So just there is some continuity that's affected. And so I'm wondering, like, how do you feel about that? And what kind of impact, if any, do you think it will have on the squad?
I don't. I mean, it's going to have an impact a little bit for sure. I think this week it was already like we were already thinking that like the beginning of the season might be slightly rocky because Robert Williams went in for another microscopic type of
Yep.
procedure on his knee. Yeah, he's gonna be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So the beginning of the summer of the season was already going to be kind of interesting anyway. Um, that I mean, I think we're gonna be fine because they're gonna end up starting with the same lineup that they had when Robert was out anyway. So I'm not in terms of the lineup, the roster. I'm not concerned. Of course, Danilo Gallinari is out.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunate.
yeah, I think they're still gonna end up doing another move anyway. So I'm honestly not worried about the roster. But in terms of how the season's gonna start, I think we're in a space of unknown. Do I still think the Celtics are the best team or the team to beat in the East? Yes. Yes. If you're asking me what my prediction is for the team next season, I already said I think they're going back to the finals next year.
Okay.
I'm honestly not worried about them in that sense. I do believe that what Ime was able to do with this team is going to stick in terms of the attitude and the accountability. Um, Tatum already expressed during the finals how much he loves Joe and how great he's been for the team anyway. So yes, there's going to be a slight issue with continuity, but I think that's going to get worked out anyway. Like Joe was phenomenal in summer league games. However you want to take that, he's been with the team for I think 3 or 4 years now anyway. So he already knows the personnel and what needs to be done. So I don't have any issues with that.
He was a
I
carryover from Brad, right?
Yes, yeah.
Brad
I
Stevens, for those who may not know who I'm talking about.
For sure, and I think honestly, um if what's coming out about Ime is true now, in terms of uh, uh um, there's speculation now that he was given an opportunity to squash this and ended up harassing the staff member. So if that is actually true,
Who's reporting that?
hold up, Shams said something earlier, but there's a guy on that is a part of Celtics Twitter who's highly respected. Um, Andrew Droxy.
Okay.
Um, he said that from what he's gathered, the Celtics let Udoka handle his own personal relationship business when they learned about it in July, which recontextualizes a lot of jokes, but then it soured, which turned into him harassing the other party. So basically, they gave him a chance to do his thing, but still keep it professional, and he couldn't keep it together despite warnings, which then makes the violations and policies both plural. So uh, if this is
Can you
true,
send me that tweet, by the way, so I
yeah,
can look it
yeah, I
up?
got you. I got you. If that aspect of it is true, I think it kind of makes a lot of sense in terms of why he would be suspended for a year. Because if you're harassing someone and causing the work environment to be um, hostile in a way,
Yeah.
that would make sense. That would make sense. Now, if this aspect of it is true, not only do I think that Ime will not be coaching for the Celtics again, I don't know that he'll be coaching in the NBA again, because now you're
You
considered
think it would be
radioactive.
that severe?
I do, at least not for any time soon.
So I think it
Not
depends on like what comes out, right? Like
right,
in that
right,
investigation,
right.
right? Because I mean, if it's found that he was like harassing, then that's different,
Yeah,
right? Like no one's gonna want
yeah,
to hire someone who does that.
yeah,
So I don't know who this is from. So like again, I'm
yeah.
about to say something that I just received, and so
Mhm.
like again, people just remember that this is unfolding, and
Yes,
we're not breaking this as it's news or facts that we know. We're hearing information like as this
yes.
keeps happening. But allegedly, um from reports or like internal things, like cuz I got this from someone who knows people.
Hmm.
It's a married woman with the staff who has kids, and her husband alerted the Celtics after he'd hired a private investigator and got something on camera.
See, okay. There's also been speculation that he was sleeping with not just one woman but another woman
Another
as
woman,
well,
right?
which
More
was the
than one.
vice president uh, uh, in the Celtics organization. I'm not sure if he was the team vice president or
Is that the
specific.
woman who's like the light skinned Black woman, or is that someone else?
I don't. I
Because
know
I
that
want
light
to
skinned
make it
black lady. I think I thought she was a part of
the
the training
coaching staff,
staff
the
or
training staff.
yeah,
I want to make clear that that woman whose image was being like tweeted about, it
yeah,
is not her.
not
Like
at
that
all.
has been verified. So
Yeah,
I don't know her name. I apologize, but
yeah,
she's light skinned. There's been like pictures of her. Stop tweeting her picture, stop putting it out.
yeah,
It has been confirmed it is not her. It should have never been tweeted to begin with. Her
yeah,
image shouldn't have been put out there. It is not her.
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
by the way, like it shouldn't matter who it is. Like we don't need to know that. But
Right.
like people, please, some decorum.
Yeah, yeah. But see, that's the thing. Everybody wants attention, and that's the currency of today. Attention. So attention, clicks, stuff like that. That's what's going to end up driving up a lot of people to throw out more speculation. But if any of this stuff is true, which we, of course, I'm assuming we're going to find out. Um, that's why I don't know. I don't know that he's going to come back because think of it like this: if let's just say hypothetically the Celtics get back to the finals this coming season, are you then going to switch back to Ime?
Yeah, so I think he's done in the Celtics.
Right.
I'm really wondering if he's done
I think
like
he's
as
done
an
as a
NBA coach.
I would assume he's done as a head coach. If all of this stuff is coming out is true, I think he will be because at least for the immediate future, um, because of the fact that you're now going to, if you hire him, you're now inviting yourself for all this scrutiny for the minimum of a season.
Well, I mean, the Blazers hired Chauncey Billups, who was accused of far worse,
Right,
and
right.
and there was a settlement, but like the details of
Yeah,
like the I don't know if you read them. They were
yeah,
actually pretty jarring and
yeah.
upsetting to me, and they
Jason Kidd as
still,
well.
huh?
Jason Kidd as well.
Yes. And they still hired, so that like, Jason Kidd, I always look at this from the, I'm sorry, we just have to. I always look at this
Mhm.
from the context of race,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
um Jason Kidd, like, he is biracial, but like he's white, you
Yeah.
know? So um
He gets a little pass.
you understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yes,
people are
yes.
like, how are you gonna declare his but like
He's
he
white
pre-
passing.
he's white passing, he presents as a white man.
Yes.
Chauncey, I think, because those allegations were so old
Right.
and a lot of people did not know about them,
Hmm.
it probably impacted that decision.
Hmm.
This is current and like all over the news cycle. So
Yeah.
you're right in that it might be some time, but I kind of feel like the leagues in general have shown that they don't care about this stuff. Like,
They don't.
unless there's like something caught on video, you
Hmm.
know,
Which, if what you're saying was caught on video,
but that would just still be cheating, right? And I
that would be
mean,
cheating. But at the same time, because of the day and age we're in, that's why I'm kind of wondering if he's going to coach again. I do believe at minimum it's going to be a couple of years. If all stuff is true, I think it will be a minimum of a few years for him to get considered because it's going to be considered radioactive for a while. He'll be considered radioactive, and he's a brilliant mind. That's the thing. That's the thing that really kind of like pisses me off because you're looking at it from different perspectives, right? If you're only looking at this from a basketball perspective, you want Ime, which is why I was also confused as to why Brooklyn let him go. you know, but if you're looking at this from a humanistic perspective, yes, he should not be in a position of power if he's going to abuse it. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So like I don't know. That's why I'm saying I like especially because of the roster is pretty much still intact from last season and they actually improved bringing Malcolm Brogdon over.
Yeah.
Um
That was a nice pickup for the Seas.
Beautiful. I don't know because their main issue against the Warriors was turnovers, right? That was one of their biggest issues,
Does he help with
turnovers.
that?
I for the bench, yes,
Okay.
yes. I think it also settles a lot of other guys down in terms of not doing too much in big pressure moments.
But he's not like
So
a point guard. I mean, but he's a ball handler.
yeah. But I mean, he's someone that I think helps the bench because at that point you just had Peyton Pritchard and Marcus Smart kind of like going back and forth with things and also Derrick White, right? Especially for the bench. Derrick White and Pritchard were the guys that were kind of doing a lot and then also there's a lot of turnovers. And I think that I think Brogdon coming in will settle a lot of things down in that aspect.
I agree. I don't think he's turnover prone. He's certainly going to help with the offense, right? Like, just
Right.
like scoring too,
Right.
and shooting.
So that's an improvement on the roster in general. So I think that they from a roster perspective, I think that the Celtics are perfectly fine. I mean, they still have other things they need to go ahead and work on, like Jason Gallinari. Like you got to find something else.
Wait, Derek, I lost you for a second. What was that last part?
Hold on, my mic went out.
Yeah.
Uh,
I hear you now though, so you're
okay,
good.
all right,
Yeah.
now we're good. Um, I think they're going to go in and they might replace him or whatever, but I think in general the Celtics are fine. Um, so let's say they have this, they repeat their success from last season. uh, yeah, Udoka is not coming back to the Celtics. I don't, especially if all this stuff comes out is true. Now, if it's not true, and they still have that success, I do think that there's a possibility of him coming back and resuming his position.
So which part are we saying if it's not true? Because we know that he absolutely had sex with like,
Yes,
and like we don't know what their policy is because there are some workplaces that just like forbid that to begin
right,
with, right?
right.
And so I think he's done in the Celtics no matter what. Like even if like they can't, right? Because the thing about investigations and the way they work, just so people understand workplace investigations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's often like a he said, she said, whatever
Sure.
it is, right? So there, you cannot always get the truth, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
fact finding exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, when I put a report together,
Mm-hmm.
I don't say this happened. I just state the things that I can confirm and the things
Mm-hmm.
that I can't. And that's how it's literally written, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I can confirm there was a sexual relationship. I
Mm-hmm.
give like the facts as presented from all the parties involved,
Mm-hmm.
right? I do credibility assessments,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of like, do I think this person's believable? Why I think they are, why they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes there are things that you just cannot confirm. So the whole idea is that it's a fact finding exercise, right?
Right.
So, like, you may not be able to determine that he coerced, but we know that they had sex, and that's a violation of the workplace policy. Do you get what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Right.
and I don't know. I'm just saying I kind of want people to understand like how these investigations play out
For
because
sure.
a lot of times people are just like, it's so obvious. It's this. It's not obvious,
Right.
and you have to talk to a lot of people. So, I think he's done with the Celtics regardless. And particularly, like you said, if they have success again this year, because
Mm-hmm.
like if you have success with another coach and you get back, why bring back the person with drama, right?
Right.
So,
So my thought process is mainly focused on the harassment aspect. Like if there was harassment, that's predatory behavior, right? That's what I'm saying. Like I if that's found to be false, then I think there's room. I think there could be room for him to come back. But
yeah, I mean,
if
I
there's
don't know.
not, then it's just not.
So he's under contract, right? So when you're under
Right.
contract, things are written differently. So
Mm-hmm.
my guess is that there are things in his contract that would still give them reason to like terminate him,
Oh, for sure.
whether or not. And I say that because like you have to question his judgment, like whether or not you did like exhibited or displayed predatory behavior, like your judgment and sleeping with someone who um is in the organization who you have power, control, or authority over, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exercise good judgment, right? And so there's
Right.
lots of reasons for them to feel uncomfortable with him as a coach, even if it's determined that he didn't do any of the other stuff. So
Right.
I don't think I truly don't think he'll be back on the Celtics, but I think like if there are findings that like he didn't do some of this other stuff, I think that opens the door for him to still be an NBA coach, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not right away, but down the line.
Yeah. But see, okay, so this is where I've been kind of toying around with this whole thing. Like when Jeannie Buss and Phil Jackson got together,
Mm-hmm.
was he not already the coach of the Lakers at that point?
I don't recall the timing of it.
That I don't recall either. But that's where I'm wondering because there was a power dynamic with that as well, right? But I mean, this is not the first time we've heard of someone in a position of power. It's not excusable, but it's not the first time we've heard of someone that's in a position of power that is sleeping with someone that they where they manage or whatever. Um, that whole dynamic, Jeannie being the daughter of the team owner.
Right. And
with
so
the coach.
in that case, she's the owner, right? So
Right,
it's
right,
like
right.
in this, you have two employees. They're just different level of employees, but they're two
Mhm,
employees, right? So like
mhm,
the Celtics are going to have the ultimate decision over that, not
mhm,
him. Whereas
mhm.
like the owners, like even if there was something wrong, the owner isn't going to like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I got you. I got you. Yeah, yeah. It's this is weird.
Also, I'd
This is
argue
weird.
that like yes, as the owner, you do have like control still, but Phil
Mhm.
Jackson is not like a lowly employee, right? And I don't know
Right,
that this
right.
person was, but Phil Jackson is Phil Jackson.
Well, if
Like
he's
he has a
if
certain level of power himself. He's
for
like
sure,
an executive,
for sure. But even if Udoka is sleeping with the vice president's wife, that's another aspect of it that where I'm thinking about it too, because it's someone that's in the front
right.
office.
Right.
If
Well, then
their wife,
yeah. And
you
that
know.
then and that also brings you back to his judgment, right? And like
Right,
how
right, right.
like probably not a wise decision,
Nah, nah,
So
nah. Which see, and that's why I'm also kind of confused too, because if if that is true, why would he not just automatically be fired?
well, because I mean, that's not the proper way to handle things, right?
Might not
Like
be the proper way, but
well, because again, he has a contract. He's not like an employee at will.
right.
So when you have a contract, you can only be terminated for specific things, right? So
So you're
sleeping
saying that's pending.
it could be, but I'm just saying, not sleeping with your boss's wife or whoever may not necessarily meet the conditions under the contract
Gotcha.
to
Gotcha.
terminate him,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we don't need to go down the road of speculation because we don't
Yeah.
know. What
Yeah.
I do want to talk about though before we wrap up and like we're close is there's two things. One is just our overall, I think, well, I don't want to speak for you, but I think
Hmm.
for many, the collective disappointment in Ime for
Yes.
whatever reason, whether you're a Celtics fan, whether you were rooting for him as a black man, as a black coach, head
Hmm.
coach in the NBA, um, whether you're a Nia supporter, so you don't like her being disrespected, whatever it is, there's
Hmm.
like disappointment from his actions,
Yeah.
Um, and while it's not fair, we know as Black people working in a white world that we have
Hmm.
to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know,
And even
Obama
that
was
might not be the
criticized for
best.
wearing a beige fucking suit. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And like that, he doesn't know that. And like display this behavior is really, truly disappointing on so
Yeah.
many levels. Because I was so proud of him and I was happy because like we all need to have success, but like we know with us, it's like one of our successes is all of our successes. And unfortunately,
Hmm.
one of our failings is all of our failings, which should not be, but it is. And it's disappointing because like you're rooting for him. It's like, yes, I mean, I really wish that the Celtics weren't playing the Warriors because like
Hmm.
up until that point, I was rooting for him and I was like, he should have gotten like coach of the year. And you
Should have.
know,
Yeah.
and now it's just like I'm just so disgusted. I'm so frustrated. I'm annoyed with him. I'm mad at him. I don't even
Yeah.
know him. And I'm pissed. Like, what the fuck, yo? Like,
Yeah.
you cannot do this dumb shit.
Yeah. And you wait until you become a head coach to then fumble the bag. Like,
Or we just don't know about past things he's done. And that's
oh,
the
we don't know. That's
problem
true too.
because
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are now going to go digging to find out if there's any past things.
Speaking of, this is why I'm also kind of confused. Like where I'm conflicted with Joe Mazzulla because he also had a domestic violence
Yes.
thing come up that has been brought up into light now. So like, not only will the Celtics have to answer for this for the rest of the season, they're gonna have to answer for that as well. Which now you wonder, does he stay as the head coach or do they just keep him as interim head coach until they find someone else? Which
Even the decision to make him interim, knowing that that's there, is an interesting one.
it's an interesting one. Yeah. So hey, look, when Brad stepped down, my immediate thought was Becky Hammon as head coach. Um But also, oh my god, I don't know why I'm blanking her name. The Duke female basketball head coach.
Duke?
Yes, she. No, I'm sorry. Kentucky. Um, why am I blanking on her name? She was on she was on Brad Stevens' staff uh the year before he stepped down. She was another one that I wanted to be as head coach because she's just phenomenal. So I don't know if they decide to go in, look in any of those directions.
I don't know if Becky's gonna want to come back to the NBA, but they
Well,
don't deserve
the
her.
price went up. The price has gone up now at this point.
I know, but like they don't deserve her. Like
They don't, but let's say
I mean, she's happy in the W. She just won,
yeah, but it would be amazing to see her get that opportunity in the NBA as well. I
Look,
mean I
I
love it.
would love a woman to be a head coach in the NBA, but I feel like Becky's building something in Vegas and I would like
Yeah,
her to stay there, you know.
yeah,
I don't want to keep sending the message, but again, it's what's important to her. Now, look, the NBA probably can afford to pay her more, so I'm not going to like knock anyone for money, but
yeah.
I want us to eventually get to a place where it's like it's not necessarily more prestigious to go to the NBA, and that's a part of
Right,
like and I'm not saying you're saying that,
right,
but
right, right.
it's a part of building the W up, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I like what she's doing in Vegas. I like what's happening over there. I would like to see her stay in Vegas. But you know, of
Yeah,
course, it's obviously Becky's decision, whether it's Celtics or
yeah.
whoever. Like I'm sure NBA teams will be considering her again, and it will be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see if she's gonna like leave and come back.
But speaking of that aspect though of building up the WNBA, that was my argument too. Is like a lot of these guys that just automatically get these jobs in the NBA, they should like, especially former players, should try to work in the WNBA as a head coach or on the coaching staff to build up and
But see, that's what I mean. I don't want the WNBA to be a stepping stone to the
it's not a
NBA.
stepping
Go
stone.
go build up in the G League. You
But
know,
no,
like
I agree with that too. But I think that
I want them really
where the
invested in
WNBA,
women's basketball, you
for
know?
sure, for sure. But I think where the WNBA is right now, it like there needs to be a building taking place so that it can be on the same level as the NBA, because it should be automatically, like it should be right there. But it's you have that aspect of it where we have recognizable names and faces. Like Derek Fisher was coaching the Sparks,
Clown.
right?
He's
Big
fucked
clown.
them up.
But but that brought some eyes to the team, right? Even for whatever reason, even when they were losing,
Some
it still
eyes to
brought,
judge his foolishness because he was an awful coach
for
and ruined
sure,
the Sparks.
for sure, and messed them up. But
Let my fellow hoopstress
it,
Robin tell you, like Derek is he is the reason for everything bad that has happened in that
for
organization.
sure, for
Lost
sure.
Chelsea, lost Candace, and they both went on to
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
Come on, son.
But having a recognizable name and face does bring more eyes to the team, to the
Yeah, but
to the
like that
games.
wasn't good eyes, you know. Like,
It
look,
wasn't. It wasn't.
there were some great there are some great men coaches in the W. So I don't want to take
Yeah,
away from them, but I
yeah.
just like I don't want every time the W gets something good, then the NBA comes to like take it away. You know, like it's
Right.
like you didn't want to give Becky her fair shot before. She went to Vegas, got paid, and
And got
just
a
won.
championship.
And
Yeah.
like I would like her to stay, me personally,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I hear you. No, I definitely hear you. The Celtics got some things to figure
They
out.
got they got a lot of questions to answer at this point.
Are
Like,
you disappointed in Ime?
oh, look, now I'm disappointed in him for many reasons because you've abused your position of power, right? Not only that, but you were just in the finals. Like you took a team that was trying to get over the hump, could not break that Eastern Conference Finals barrier. You come in your first year, you get them there to the finals. Two wins away from actually winning it all, right? Um, so
After some initial bumps in the road.
and a lot of bumps because you were missing Robert Williams a good chunk of the game of the playoffs. Tatum was hurt, Smart was hurt. You had a lot of issues going on and still found a way to get there. So now you bring all this unnecessary attention to the team, bad attention to the team, and now the roster, these players have to now answer these questions because we saw how long it took for reporters to stop asking Kevin Durant about either joining the Warriors or leaving the Warriors. You saw how long it took for them to stop talking about that, or at least talking about it consistently. Now this is going to be a theme played throughout the season, to where teams are going to be, reporters are going to be asking these players questions about Ime, which is not fair to them. So that's where I think that the attention is. What I would love to see for every player to black out on social media. Like every guy just black out and focus on this, because we've seen video of Jalen, training and working on specific aspects of his game. Tatum doing the same thing, working on the mid range. I don't want this distraction to be something that messes them up, because we've already seen where, because of Ime being there and being this vocal person and holding them accountable, they were starting to do that a lot throughout the season themselves. So I hope that that's the attitude and uh, um, perspective they come from for this season, is holding each other accountable, blocking out the noise, and just doing what you need to do. If they do that, which I don't see that they won't, because these guys are not as young as they were a couple years ago, where a lot of stuff was getting to them. I think that if they just lock in and just do that, they'll be perfectly fine. I don't have any questions about the roster. It's just now I don't know what to expect from the coaching aspect.
Right.
So that's the thing that sucks about it, because now we're gonna be, and Joe Mazzulla is now gonna have stuff to answer for, like not only his personal stuff, but now he's got to answer for Ime too.
Right.
It's unfair across the board, and Ime put the team, the organization, into a place where now they have to answer for this whole thing all season. And that's also why I'm not even sure if Ime comes back, because this time next year, what does that look like?
Right.
If they bring him back, now you have more questions to answer for. So now it's gonna be 2 years back to back of you answering questions unnecessarily for this stuff. So I don't know. It's annoying. It's annoying. As a fan, this is highly annoying to see, but also it's disappointing. I'm disappointed as a fan of the team. I'm disappointed from a media perspective as well, because there's been irresponsibility across the board for a lot of media personnel that just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And that's why this misinformation thing, I hate. I love the era that we're in, but I hate it at the same time, because misinformation gets passed along as fact, and now you're arguing something that isn't even true.
Right.
So
Sorry, I keep looking down. I'm like getting updates. I'm trying to see if there's
no,
anything
you're good.
new
You're good. Yeah,
coming.
no, me too.
I saw that like Brad kind of, I don't know if this just happened or it's just like being reported from what he said, because I've been like so buried at work. Like I'm a little delayed in seeing all the news and like when the timing of things are coming out. But he commented on like the women being dragged and like how like that was unfortunate,
Yeah.
who got like dragged into it. So there was one other thing that like for me as a woman is important to touch on. And again, people are gonna say like, nah, like people cheat. So like, why are you framing this as like a man versus woman thing? And I don't mean to, but
No, part of it is though.
yeah.
You have to
And
look at
it's
it like that
like,
sometimes.
I don't like the casualness in which like the fact we don't know, right? But
Mhm.
many of us are assuming, me included, that he cheated on Nia. Um, and I don't like that. Right? If that is the
Yeah.
case, I don't like it. Let me
Yeah.
make that clear. And I don't like people saying to me, I had one person say to me, like, why do you care about people's lives who you don't know? Because I care about Black women. That's why.
Yeah.
And secondly, in general, I just don't like it's like the way we treat school shootings. Like, we're just so like we've just become so desensitized to like infidelity that like
Yeah.
people cheat all the time. Well,
Yeah.
and talk about that. When people cheat all the time, the people in your life, your parents, when you've seen that happen in their relationships, your friends, is it easy? Like, are people not heartbroken, devastated? So why are we acting like this does not matter? Now imagine that all unfolding in the public, right? Like your business is not even private, right? So yes, I empathize with what she might have to be dealing with. And I don't like it. I don't like when people cheat, man or woman, you know, but like yeah, she's Nia Long. I grew up like Nia. I was definitely like a girl like loving me some Nia Long, thought she was fly, thought she was everything. I know dudes loved her.
Most definitely.
And I really this is another thing I just need to make clear because like this shit annoys the shit out of me. Like men online talking about y'all acting like she's prime Nia Long. Please stop doing this with women. Like, first of all, Nia Long for one is still beautiful, but we're gonna stop this like prime thing. It's like every time people see Ashanti, they're just like, "Yo, she's 40." Like, women don't stop looking good when they turn 40, and some of y'all need to think about what you look like because y'all don't even look good now in your 20s or 30s or whatever you are. Okay, like it just annoys me. Nia Long is still like incredible. But not only that, it's just like it's this objectifying of women like solely on their looks and things like that. So just all these like silly conversations have been happening, but I just want to say that like we don't need to compare like the act of Ime to like Brett Favre. Like they both were bad. They're not the same level of bad, but we don't like talk about them separately. Like just because one is less egregious doesn't mean that I don't have to be bothered by it or I shouldn't be as upset or talk about it. Like part of the reason I'm talking about it is because I'm not into football like that. So like I'm not talking about him, but yes, we can talk about like the way that he's being treated as a white man because we know that there's differences, but I didn't like how that comparison started, and I didn't like how people were just minimizing the fact that like he may have cheated on his wife and brought all of this to her. And so I just want to say that to me it's still a painful thing, infidelity and cheating. And again, yes, I don't know if he did, so I'm going to say that, but working under assumption that he did, like it's not cool, it's not okay, and I don't have to like minimize it.
Yeah, I think that comparison with the Brett Favre thing is mainly because the attention that that received was so minimal, and it's still something that a lot of people don't really acknowledge. Is that he stole, I think, like 5 million.
Yeah, and the
You
thing
know,
is,
like
I
that.
don't actually think it was that minimal, to be honest. Like, but I guess my point is that like a lot of what people think they see is based on like what's on their timeline, what comes up for them. And like my timeline is curated for NBA news, right? So like I don't think people are always thinking about like, did you actually go out? I'm not saying you. This is like a rhetorical question. When people are just saying it's not the same, like, did y'all go out and like actually like do searches and see how many stories there were? Did you count? Like, because I actually checked and I saw lots of shit about Far. Now I'm not saying that it was the same frequency or quantity, but like this idea that it just like wasn't being discussed and given attention is like just flat out incorrect. But just the other thing is the nature of sexual harassment, the salaciousness of it always lends itself to being a story that's going to get more coverage. And like that's like when like the guy from NBC, what's his name? Matt Lauer, right?
Lauer,
Like it was a big fucking deal because like sex sells, and it's like news, and people care about like relationships. That's why I've always said employment law to me is one of the most fascinating areas of law, because you're dealing with people and personal relationships, and that's way more fucking interesting than stocks and bonds and funds and money. And I'm not saying that that's right, but some of that's just like our human nature, like who's fucking in the workplace. It's just, it's a more interesting thing. So again, because I don't want to minimize.
For sure.
I don't want to minimize, because y'all already know where I'm all Black, everything. I am like very proudly like Black. And I don't want to minimize the discrepancies and the differences in how when white men commit some kind of misconduct in their roles or professional lives, the way that it's covered is different than a Black man. So I don't want to minimize that. My point is solely about, we're not going to just act like nothing happened, because what Ime did is less egregious. We can talk about both and talk about them with the level that they should be talked about, but let's stop acting like, he just cheated, so oh well. No, that's a thing.
Yeah, no, I think
that's really my point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been very dismissive of it, but I think for me, it's one of those things where I'm more so looking at the media personnel in terms of their ability to report on certain things, right? And this is, both stories are egregious, right? We just don't have a lot on Ime, like,
right? No,
which
I agree.
is why it irritates me that the speculation aspect of it has been discussed more than the fact aspect, right?
Well, NBA media has always been different, though, right? Like the way news around the NBA is more of a soap opera. So like NFL is just not covered in the same way. So it's always going to be like this in the NBA, because we cover a lot of the drama that goes on around the NBA, which at times can be infuriating, that we're not talking about like the sport and what's happening in the games. But that's what NBA coverage often includes. And I think people have to remember that context when you say like, well, why isn't it being covered in the same way? Well, because NBA is covered differently than the NFL. And that's always sort of been the thing,
I feel like I think, to me, the NFL is covered the same way in terms of the drama aspect of it. But it's they're both soap operas somewhat in terms of how they're covered. It's just that there's more information that we know about Brett Favre than what we know about Ime. And that's for me, that's where it's like, come on. Right now, I get that this is the breaking news, so that's automatically going to be on top. Like that, you can't get around it. But when the Brett Favre news broke, it wasn't as intense as this is, and that for me is the reason why I think that the comparison aspect of it is out there, is because they weren't given the same amount of attention at the same time, at the same point of breaking. Ime has been shot up here and discussed more as if there are facts that are known when they're not. So that's where the irritating aspect of it comes from me.
I think a percentage of that is about him being Black, but I think
for sure.
I think a lot of it is about other things that people are not considering, some of the stuff that I already stated. I don't think it's just because one is Black and one is white. And I think people are trying to simplify it to that. And when it is like that, I will say it, because like I am not here to cape for no white man. I'm just saying that there are other things at play that I think people are really just like overlooking. So
for sure.
So we get in Celtics versus Warriors again in the finals?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that any team in the East improved enough to overtake the Celtics roster.
Because a lot of people are saying the Bucks are the best team in the East. And like they're kind of chalking up the fact that they lost to just that Kevin Middleton was out. Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton. Yeah.
I always call this man Kevin. I don't know why. As soon as I said it, I said, wait, Chris. Like, and I know who Chris Middleton is. I don't know why I'm obsessed with calling this man Kevin. But anyway. So yeah, a lot of people think it's like because Chris Middleton was out. Like, I'm of the position that I think that would have been like a long series anyway. I still think it goes 7. I still think it could have gone either direction. So I don't know that I'm prepared to say that the Bucks are a better team. What I will say is what I always say, because this is my belief. You know that, like, you edit my show, so you know how I feel. I think you need a superstar. I think you need like one of those top guys. And I think you probably rank Tatum higher than me. I think Tatum is like a top talent. I still think like he's not in the tier with guys like Giannis and Steph and those guys. And I feel like you kind of saw that play out in the series with the Warriors and the Celtics. But like I think that's why people are saying that the Bucks, it's like because Giannis was missing someone and looked like what he was able to do alone without having his person. So it's just going to be too much for the Celtics. I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think that it's important to have like that guy. And so look, Tatum could come into next year and he could jump into that category. Like maybe he's going to raise his game another level. I don't know. But you know, it's natural that people improve because that's what happens, right? So like he should be better next season than he was last season. I just don't know if that's going to put him into tier 1 category. And I don't have him as a tier 1 guy, but I do think you need one of those guys on your team ultimately. And so that's where I've always landed. And I feel like the results just always bear that out. So that's kind of where I land. So like I have like the Bucks and the Celtics as, despite all this stuff, I do have them as like the top 2 teams in the East until we understand what's happening with Brooklyn. But I'm curious from your perspective, like seeing how people have been talking about the East. I'm sure you've seen some of that. Like, how do you feel about like that talk?
I mean, it's annoyed me since the playoffs because everybody accounts for Chris Middleton's injury, but no one accounts for Tatum's injury. No one accounts for Smart's injury, and no one accounts for Robert Williams' injury. You know, like we still won, and 3 of our starting 5 were hurt.
Yeah, Tatum went head to head with Giannis in that series, and I think that's the thing with wrist. Right. I think that's the thing with Tatum, though. It's like his ability to do that consistently, like every game, right? And but he definitely did. And so that's why I'm just like, that's the thing with the Celtics. It's like Tatum can always get like that. It's just, can he get like that consistently, right?
Yeah.
And
well, I think
if he does, that's what makes him a tier 1 guy.
For sure. But I think one of the things which I was hoping he would do was work on his mid-range game. And that's what I've been seeing him do this summer, is really working on that, because you saw in different moments of the playoffs when he got to that spot and did something, he was killing. But
I would like him to work on his shot selection. That's what I like.
Well, I thought there were certain shots that he should not have taken, but he got better this year. This past season, he improved his shot selection from the previous season. So I didn't mind when there were times where he missed, because also the shots were good. They just didn't fall because also the nerve injury that he had, right? So, you know, there's a lot of things that people want to get on him for, and I'm not saying that anybody's wrong to do so, but add context to it. Add context. That's my only rebuttal for it. I don't think that it's unwarranted to criticize him, but if you're going to criticize, at least add context to it. By the time they got to the finals, you know, it is what it is. You know, the turnovers happened, and he's hurt. Smart is hurt. Robert's hurt. And the best guy on the floor was Jaylen Brown. And that's because that Jaylen can raise to that level. That's also why I believe that the Celtics are better than the Bucks, because you have Giannis, but his second and third are lower than Tatum's second and third. You know what I'm saying? So
Third, sure. I don't know about second. I think Chris
you're
Middleton's
putting
a
Chris
little.
Middleton above Jalen Brown?
I'm not saying that he's above him. I don't know that like I think Jalen is above him. Like I think Chris Middleton is severely underrated, I guess is what
No, I think he's underrated, but I'm saying like if we're
I
gonna
think they're on
say
par with one another.
yeah,
I
yeah,
do.
but I think if we're gonna sit, okay, you can agree or disagree. I think Jalen Brown is somewhere in between the top 15 to top 20, right? Are you able to confidently say Chris Middleton is in that range? I'm not.
I'd have to really sit down and think about like who my top 15 list is, but like I've
Yeah.
talked about this like many times before, and I don't think that I've ever had Jalen in my top 15. Um, so I probably have him like somewhere between 15 and 20 or between 20 and 25.
Which is fair.
Um, so I would have to think about that some. Um, I guess what I will say is that I think right now that Jalen's ceiling is probably still higher than
Yeah.
Kevin, like than Chris.
Chris.
Um, so like I think you've kind of hit like Chris's ceiling, right? I don't
Yes,
know that
yes.
there's going to be more. And I think so. I think that Jalen has more room to grow.
Yeah.
But in right now, in terms of what each gives you, based on, I think it's comparable. So I think, and we'll see because I think they both need to learn on working like how to go left because like when teams start forcing them to their left, right? Like, and that's like one of the things the Warriors figured out like during the finals, right? And it was giving them problems. So I hope those things like those minutia, those details within the game are things that they're working on that will make both Jason and Jalen better players next season. So I'm excited. This is a Warriors podcast and we barely touched on them, but I just want to say that I'm really excited. Training camp is about to start.
Yes.
And we're finally, for the first time, God's willing, knock on wood, starting training camp with all of our guys like healthy, no restriction. James Wiseman is finally going to get a training camp. Can you believe that?
That's
He's going
wild.
into his third NBA season and has not had one. This summer was his first summer league, and there were like restrictions because he was just, getting back on the court. So that's pretty exciting. And I'm really excited because for the first time, now, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but for the first time, like Bob Myers came out and kind of stated like they want to keep Andrew Wiggins. And that's always kind of been like the scary thing for us because we don't like they can do it. It's just like, are they going to pay the tax? And I don't know that he's stating he's going to pay the tax, but I think they're going to try to get like him to try to make some concessions and whoever else to make some concessions. But the fact that they want to try to keep him and that they stated that I felt was like really good. They've also said that like, they're going to start turning their attention to trying to extend Poole from now, which is like what we expected. So the Warriors are in a pretty good position.
For sure.
Draymond is like in a contract year, so I expect him to just be good throughout the whole season because he's in a contract year. So I don't know.
Are you confident that he's going to get re-signed?
Yeah, I don't think like look, I know that Dre is gonna want like as much money as possible. I don't think he's getting like some crazy max contract. And I don't really know who would pay Dre that. Like, I don't know who would be incentivized enough to like take him from the Warriors to hurt them, but also like you want to be helping your team. And like Dre is not the Dre of old. So like just like he definitely still has a lot of value, but I don't know
what is it?
Well, first of all, like Dre is still a great defender. I think people have to remember that he got hurt
monetarily. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, I don't know. It's not going to be a max. I mean, it's probably going to be, I want to say like in the 20 million range, I would think. But I don't know. And so I mean, like, look, his agents are clutch, so they always try to like push for, but like the Warriors are not doing it. Like the Warriors just let GP2 go to like Portland.
Yeah.
Like they're not like, I mean, look, GP2 is not Draymond Green. He means something different to the franchise, but they're still not gonna just like max him out to max him out. Like the only person who gets that is Steph. Like I don't even know that like Clay, who still has one more year left, I don't even think he's gonna like get that. So they've invested into the youth movement and they've made that clear. So, but I just think it's good because like Andrew is sort of like in the middle. Like he's not all the way young, but he's younger than like our core guys, and we really need him.
Yeah.
So
which makes sense to keep him.
Yeah.
But are you keeping Andrew? Let's just fast track it to next season, next offseason. Are you keeping Andrew over Dre? Like if you had to choose between the two.
I don't think it's a decision between the two of them. I think the decision with Andrew is I think it has more to do with Kuminga because just the natural progression of Kuminga's growth is that Andrew's in his way, right?
Right.
If you think about it,
for sure,
it's Andrew's in his way. And so it's like, I think some of this will depend on what Kuminga shows you this year, right? Because he's still going to be a really young player. He's still very raw. It is better for him to learn under Andrew, but Kuminga has shown us that he thinks he's ready. He wants to be out there, and you run the risk of him leaving because he feels like he's not getting enough. So I don't really think it's about Dre because you need both of them because you need like Clay can't guard at the point of attack anymore.
Right.
So you need, but like Dre functions in a different capacity in our lineup. So I truly don't think it's a choice between the two of them. But like I think if they're maxing someone, it's Poole, right? I think it's Poole who's going to get the max. So I think it's getting Dre and Andrew to make some money concessions. And I don't know if they will.
And that's what I'm asking. If you're choosing between the two contractually, which one are you going with? Because I
have no idea. I think it depends on who's unwilling to budge, right? Like I don't think they're giving either maxes. I don't think the Warriors are coming off that. So it's what numbers they're willing to do. They're not giving, and I also don't think for Andrew, I don't even know that they're going to be willing to offer him like a 4 or 5 year contract. Cause like I said, they've invested into the youth movement and he may want like a long-term commitment. So it kind of depends on what those guys want, but neither is getting the max. So I think it's going to determine like how much they want to stay like a part of a winning organization. Like Andrew felt slighted by not making a defensive team. Like he has all the confidence in the world. I think we're going to have a bigger season from him next year. So I think how he plays this year is going to like change things. Like if you get Andrew at another level, I don't know if we will, but if you do, the Warriors, right? So so a lot is going to be based on this year.
Yeah, my assumption is that Dre will be the odd man out.
Yeah, I mean, Dre's won like so many chips with the franchise and means a lot. And like, I don't think Steph would have the appetite for letting him leave. So I don't think that would be like a thing necessarily. For Dre to leave, it would have to really be like he just has like some ridiculous contract demands and won't budge on them. And I just, because at the end of the day, Dre likes winning, right? Like it bolsters him. I don't see him leaving to go like to the Orlando Magic or some team where he has no chance to win just for money, you know? So
maybe he wants to play with LeBron.
Yeah, he is. Let's not even go there. Like, I don't even put that past him, but it's just like, you know, so yeah. So I think, you know, we'll see. And I think something else that people forget, like they kind of overlook it, but like these dudes have families. He just got married. Like they have to take their wives into account and like where they like being, where they like raising their families. It's not always just like, I want this. So, you know, we'll see. But there's a path to them. By the way, none of this, the Warriors can pay all of it, right?
Yeah.
They just don't want to be.
I was about to say, do you want to though?
To me, I'm not like sympathetic to billionaires, so I'm like, fuck them, like pay the money. But like, so I just need people to realize that, because people think it's like they don't have, because like all those guys are their own guys and they've now like acquired what they've acquired for Andrew. There's no like restrictions on them. It's just the restrictions is they're going to pay hefty tax bills, right? But they can do it. So, so that's a better position, I think, to be in than where it's just like, well, we have to let one go because we literally can't,
for sure,
sign another. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not in the business of like being sympathetic towards billionaires. So it's like, whatever, bro, like pay the fucking money. Like, I don't care. My only concern, and has always been my concern, is Jonathan Kuminga, because I think I think he moves differently than other like young players. He went to the G League. He like thinks he's ready. He feels, and I don't know that he has the mindset where like, I'm just going to wait my turn. Right. And so I think that's just like something to monitor and manage.
For sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Derrick, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for letting me talk about my Warriors a little bit, because
no doubt.
I don't want people to be like, bitch, you talked about the Celtics. And like, y'all know that I'm like, I don't even want to say low key. I'm high key a Celtics fan too. So talking about them feels natural to me, but this is a Warriors podcast. Celtics are my number 2 team, but they are like, it's 1A and 1B unless they're playing the Warriors. So it's my shit. So I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. But I know y'all come to me for Warriors content. So training camp's about to start. And so I'm looking forward to the other like regular NBA things. And I guess we'll just see how this Ime situation plays out. But again, thank you so much for coming on and chopping it up with me, and like for helping me put out this show. I can't do it without you. So yes, Derrick is the person behind everything. He is the force behind OTS Media on the sidelines. If you don't know about it, you should, because I talk about it every episode before I come on and let you know who the show is brought to you by. But follow Derrick individually, Derrick Myers, and follow OTS Media on Instagram, on Twitter. This is my guy though. Thank you, Derrick.
I appreciate you
and fellow Jamaican.
Hey, wagwan. No, thanks for having me back on, and love seeing the direction of the show. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Cool, thank you. All right, y'all. So until next time, this is the last of the every other week schedule. So there won't, after this week, I won't have anything for the last week in September. And then starting in October, we'll be back to like every week, and maybe some other new announcements about what's to come. So looking forward to the next season. Let's get it. I'm looking for that Warriors repeat. That won't be great news to Derrick. That's what we're trying to do over here. We need Steph to get his fifth son. We need him to get his fifth.
We'll see.
All right, y'all. Till next time. Take care.